Here we are into September now, and I'm going to start with a gripe. Get it off my chest. I find it irritating that a very reputable tree nursery has mislabeled this sorbus as sorbus pink pagoda. Well, it's not pink. And I wanted pink pagoda. Never mind, you have to wait a few years. The thing starts flowering and berrying and you realize that you haven't got the right thing at all. However, in its favor, it is a beautiful leaf and berry, and the autumn color is absolutely gorgeous in another month or two. With its upright habit and these orange-red berries, I've come to the conclusion that this is actually a sorbus hybrid called Olympic Flame. Very beautiful in its own right. In the last video we were looking at aralias coming in all sorts of shapes and sizes. Well, here's one which is herbaceous, dies away completely in the winter, and then it comes back with its very bold foliage. And it does produce these long flowers, and they are turning to black seed now. But you can see the structure is very similar to that Calopanax that I showed you last time. The Victorians used to like this plant for its bold foliage, but I've planted it, or have tried to anyway, where I can mow around it so that even though it's very boisterous, it can sort of be kept in bounds, because otherwise it will go berserk. This one comes from Kashmir. Now coming into the Victorian garden, and Bertie is guiding us, I think, perhaps not, to this large clump of ginger lilies. Now, they come in all shapes and sizes, but this one must be the biggest daddy of them all. It's very vigorous and seemingly very hardy. Bertie is not terribly impressed by that. He's looking the other way, in fact. Aren't you, Bert? Coming in closer, we can have a look. I must say it is very bold in its foliage, and a very dramatic effect it makes, up to about 8 foot tall. But you do need the space, and the flowers are rather disappointing, quite frankly. There they are. As soon as some open up, others die on the same stem, so it doesn't have a very good flowering. Still, there we are for jungle effect, and if you've got the room, it's difficult to beat. This is Hedychium forestii. Well, we can back away from it and see the extent of the clump. Very dramatic. Now at the base of this giant eucalyptus, and rather behind it deliberately, is the flowering of the privet, Ligustrum quihoui, and it's really flowering extremely well at the moment, which are giving off a privet smell, which is neither pleasant nor unpleasant, quite frankly. There isn't a lot to recommend this shrub when it's out of flower, and so I tend to keep it in this area where it can flower and do what it has to do, and then retire again into the background. I always thought that quihoui was some sort of native name for this plant, which comes from China and Korea. But actually it's a Mr. Quihoui, who was in the Jardin des Plantes in Paris as a botanist. So there we have it. Now here's a rather better behaved ginger lily, and there's rather nicer flowers in my opinion. Ginger lilies tend to want to bend forwards and then have their flowering spikes at an upright angle. It's just the way it is with them, and it's very difficult to persuade them otherwise. This form is really a very hardy ginger lily, and I think could be grown in most places in the UK. It was discovered by Tony Schilling, who's the botanist who's introduced several ginger lilies. This one is Hidicium densiflorum Assam orange, to give it its full moniker. Still on the theme of ginger lilies, here's a very robust but actually very beautiful one. It stands at 6 to 7 feet tall. In fact, I think the flowering stem over there must be about 8 feet tall. It is quite hardy and introduced by Tony Schilling again from the Himalayas. Particularly good form, he thought, and named it after his daughter Tara. It is really quite hardy, and I think as long as one puts a mulch over the rhizomes once the plant has died away, you should be all right, because they do stay quite near the surface. Coming down the path here, I want to show you this large and rather sprawling shrub from the Himalayas, which starts flowering in September and goes on producing more and more flowers over the next 6 weeks or so. It puts me in mind slightly of a buddleia. It's got quite nice new foliage, which is a grey colour. You can see there are many more buds to come. Often one complains that plants are named after people with unpronounceable names, normally foreigners. Well, this one is named after a Scotsman, and whether that makes him foreign or not, I don't know, but it's spelt Colquhounia coccinea, but it's pronounced Colquhounia coccinea. Sir Robert Colquhoun, who it was named after, was a lieutenant, I think, in the British East India Company in about 1810, 1820, a supporter of the Calcutta Botanic Garden, and a very keen plantsman himself. This is a magnet for bees. In the spring, one can cut it right back. It responds to pruning, otherwise it will get very, very big. It is slightly tender, I believe, although perfectly all right here. Now I'm bringing you up here because on my right we have a plant which I think is jolly, but it is a relative of the Japanese knotweed. Danger, danger, danger. But this has been here 20, 25 years maybe. And I think makes an attractive spreading plant. This is the compact form which used to be marketed as Polygonum Reynoutria, which is in fact Reynoutria japonica compacta. As I say, 20-25 years, and it's, I suppose, confined where it is, but still, I think, an attractive late summer flowerer. But be warned, it spreads. I've just got time to show you this Mediterranean shrub or small tree called the chaste tree, and it is reputed by the ancient Greeks to reduce libido. It was used in a ceremony called thesmophoria in ancient Athens, apparently, where the matrons of the married women refrained from sex for several days in honor of the goddess Demeter and her daughter Persephone and Theophrastus. The Greek writer says that they strewed the leaves of this on the bedding to suppress the carnal desires. Goodness me. Anyway, it's a magnet for bees, butterflies and other insects. Agnus-castus means chaste in both Latin and Greek, so you know where you are with this tree. Well, Bertie coming to meet me. We're going to go back into the house, but we're passing the lovely Fuchsia magellanica variegated form. I think it's got really delicate flowers and a good variegation. It doesn't grow enormously tall either. Right. Again on our way, we're passing the Chilean climber, Solanum jasminoides, but in its white form. And next to it is a Cestrum with yellow flowers. I think that's from Argentina, Cestrum aurantiacum, which means orange. This Solanum is beautiful, goes on flowering for ages and associates very well with roses, as does its blue counterpart. Getting up close, I don't know whether you believe me, but this is actually a member of the potato family. Yes, rather attractive potato. And then next to it are the flowers of the orange Cestrum, which are very pretty as well. Well, let's go back in, shall we? Good boy.